Back in July, I had an idea. I was going to buy the cheapest folding phone on eBay and use it until it breaks as a second phone. This was a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3, and this cost me about $55, plus some extra money for a motherboard because the original motherboard was locked to a weird carrier. This was about $60, $70 all in. This was the closest to working Z Flip 3 that I could find. The only damage that it really has is this line up at the top, but that doesn't really affect usability whatsoever. I've actually never had this as a problem, and it has a little dent there. Other than that, this phone was in pretty good shape, and of course, I did put a case on it, so I'm not really going to go over how the glass fared, because that's like any normal phone. I'm going to go over how the phone itself has fared. And keep in mind, I haven't used this phone carefully. I've used it just like I'd use any other phone. I kind of threw it around a little bit because, it's a second phone. I just wanted to see how much I could put this phone through before it broke. So this is the phone. It's still in really good shape. The only thing that's happened that I'd even be slightly concerned about is a very slight crack forming in the crease. You can see it right there. That is just about the worst thing that's happened to this phone since July. The crease on this phone isn't really that bad either. I mean, it's kind of normal for a phone like this. It definitely has the crease in it, but I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, this is maybe a 5. This is average for a phone, especially from 2021. Keep in mind, this phone had an owner before me. I was not the first owner to it. That crease really hasn't gotten any worse, even though I've flipped and unfolded this phone probably close to 1,000 times since I've gotten it. And the surprising part to me, because everyone said, this line is going to expand, there's going to be a black spot. This never expanded. Nothing happened with this line. This line is the same now as when I got it. Surprisingly, this line never became an issue. The dents in the screen never became an issue. There's never any black spot. It stayed the exact same. So I think that while cleaning it back in July or August, I did put some scratches in the screen. It's really not visible from average viewing angles. I really have to look close to see the scratches, but they're definitely on the screen. And then burn-in, which is not really a common thing talked about on folding phones. There's no burn-in. Normally Samsung panels get burn-in. I've never seen a folding phone with burn-in. I've seen a lot of normal Samsung phones with burn-in though. So the outside screen has taken a bit of a beating, being in this case. Of course, the case doesn't really cover the entire screen. It has gotten some scratches in it that weren't there when I got it, and it has put some case marks in it. I would not think there's any burn in here. I don't really care either. Just a little bit more scratched up. It still works, touch functions, everything basically functions just as new here. Even the outside screen, which is always exposed, no screen protectors or anything, is fine. One note that I have is I can take the phone apart at least a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I did not care enough to glue this thing together when I was just gonna put a case on it and never have to worry about it. But I guess if I have to replace the battery, I can replace that really easily. Probably will replace the battery because I don't think the original owner really kept the battery health in perfect shape. And the back panel is fine too, even though the IMEI no longer matches it. This entire phone has really stayed in pretty good condition, I'd say. The back panel's never been off, so if I had to replace that bottom panel, that would be a little bit more difficult. And now I want to answer the question, should you buy a used folding phone, even though I kind of answered that in another video. This phone has been essentially flawless since I got it. I really like having this as a second phone because this is a lot smaller than a lot of secondary phones that I've seen people carry. Even the smallest iPhones really cannot compare to this because putting this in a pocket with another phone is way easier than putting something like this in a pocket with another phone. I mean, I really do not have any issue carrying this around, but when I carried the 12 Pro Max around, or even something like the SE2, it just got really annoying. I would just leave it at home most of the time because I didn't want to carry this thing around with my, 15 or 16 Pro. All the technology that this phone put into such a small form factor is amazing. I'm a big fan of flip-style folding phones. I'm really glad that this came to the US, by the way, because I know that a lot of really cool folding phones just aren't available in the US. I would not really recommend someone to just go out buy a used folding phone that's got damage on the screen like I did, but for $55 or whatever I paid for this thing is really good. I don't really think that there's any really comparable alternatives to this because this is a well-spec'd phone. It works well in 2024. It's a folding phone. That line basically doesn't affect functionality anyway. So I'd say, yeah, if you really want a really cheap phone that's going to work, it might be a good idea to buy a slightly damaged one. I would definitely avoid something with like black dots on the screen or a big crack in the crease. I am kind of worried about that crack, but I guess that we'll see. When this phone does break, I don't care. It's $50. The fact that it's lasted me longer than a week is already surprising. I was fully expecting this phone to break after a week, just never work again. But here it is, like 3 months later, still working. So with that said, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this video is enjoyable, and goodbye.